Hello, in this video I'm going to show you some of the features of Structura. This first video will show you about workspaces and account information. Now if you find the Structura on the website and you go to the downloads, you can choose the download for your system. In this case I'm using Linux, and so I downloaded the app image and I just click on it, and Linux is going to complain because there's not an official source for this, so I click run anyway and it will show you the app window. Alright, so the first thing I want you to see is the dark mode button in the upper right corner. If you like to use dark mode, you can click on that. I'm going to use light mode for this video. Now when you first install Structura, you're going to have some information, and it'll look more like this. And it'll say user, and what you can do if you want to put your name in here, you can do that. I'll put my name, and I'm going to create a fake email address. If you want to put your real one, you can, and this information can be used when you export a passage to a PDF, for example. You can include your author information there. Like, for example, if you're submitting to a professor or you just want to share that this is your work. Now the default workspace is there. Let's say I want to make that my main workspace. Click Save. And then let's say I want to have a second workspace and call it my teaching workspace, so I can show my students some passages that I've analyzed. And by creating a second workspace, I've unlocked the feature to import data from another workspace. So let's go ahead and switch to the teaching workspace. And let's say I'm going to make this translation only because my students don't know Greek and Hebrew. I can do that. And then let's say I've got some data that I want to import from my main workspace so I can show my students, then I can do that. Now I don't have any data on this account yet, or this user, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you first of all what a translation only workspace looks like. It doesn't show you Greek and Hebrew, it just shows Genesis to Revelation using the unfolding word literal text. If I'm just working in English, then I can do that. So I click on Genesis and it will open up just the English. Now I can still enable Hebrew if I want to, but by default it's just the English. So I can actually change workspaces in the upper right corner of the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and switch to my main workspace, and I'm going to need to enable Hebrew once again. But by default, if you don't use a translation-only workspace the first time, the Hebrew will show up. So here we are, Genesis 1. Now you're seeing the chapter view. You can also define passages. So if I click Define New Passage, and let's say I want it to be from chapter 1 until chapter 2, verse 3, because that's the literary unit. I click Create Passage, and that will now give me access to all of that whole passage. And not only that, when I work with notes, then I'll see, I'm going to skip defining a heading, but when I work with notes, there'll be passage-specific notes. So you'll notice at the top you can record a main idea or a teaching outline, or some passage notes on this passage. So that's the value of using the passage view. Now all the data that you create in the passage view will also show up in chapter view. So I'm going to go ahead and exit the passage. And I want to show you some of the settings. Now let's go back to the home screen. I click on the Structura icon in the upper left corner, and that gets me back here. And you'll notice there's a gear icon for settings. I can decide which lexicon I want for which language. I can set custom fonts, but I don't have a lot of fonts installed in this system, so I'll leave the default. But we could theoretically, we could change this to SBL Hebrew if it were installed, and that would change the font. Just for kicks, let's see if if this particular font is installed. I think it's probably not. If we go back here, yeah, I don't think it is. It's defaulted to a sans serif font. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to clear that out so I can use the Ezra SIL font. You can just notice that the settings icon is also available in chapter and passage view. So I'm going to go ahead and continue. There's several different sources for scripture texts, for tooltips and Bible lookup. Well, for tooltips, you can use api.bible if you want to register and create an API key for yourself. Or you can, for the Bible lookup, there's a bunch built in, and by default, English will be enabled. But let's say I want to add Vietnamese because I teach in Vietnamese sometimes. I can click on that and enable Vietnamese. And what that does then is down below, I can choose which text I want to use for the tooltips. And later on, I can open a text in Bible lookup. Now, there's one more feature in the settings, and that is, well, two more features. First is Zotero. If you use Zotero for bibliographic management, you can create a user ID and API key on your account with Zotero and be able to access your library of bibliographic information, so you can create notes from Zotero. They're not dynamic, they're static, but it's still nice to be able to record a little bit of information when you're taking notes. Finally, there's different source texts. You can hide or show them. Let's say you're not really into reading the Greek New Testament, you can disable that. And then when you go back to the home screen, it shows just the Hebrew Bible and the Septuagint. I actually read the New Testament, so I'm going to go ahead and re-enable that. So those are some of the key features. I've already shown you about chapter and passage view. The last thing I want to show you, and this works for both chapter and passage view, and that is the customization for the toolbar. Now you click on this gear icon on the toolbar, and you can show or hide different things like tooltips. You can hide the tooltips, or let's say you don't really care about how how Hebrew is displayed. Is it katal or is it perfect? You can hide that, or all these other things you can hide. If you want to unclutter your workspace, you could disable all of them if you wanted to. In fact, let's make this window larger. You can click hide all or show all. I'm going to go ahead and show all. And then one last thing, I forgot about this, and that is presentation mode. Let's say you want to put your window of Structura, excuse me, on screen for a presentation. Then you can click on presentation mode, and what that does is it makes the text extra large. Now there are different text size options there. You can make it really large so your students can see more easily. You can increase the line spacing or decrease it. Those are just a few of the features. Now, one last thing I want to show you is this copy link for browser. If you want to use the browser to show students your work, you can do that. You just paste that link and it will show you. And we got to re-enable the translation, but it'll show you in presentation mode, so you can display this in your browser, or if you use like a JavaScript presentation, you can put this link in an iframe and work right from within your presentation. So those are a few of the workbench, so the workspace features on Structura. If you have any feedback, go ahead and give that to me in the comments or at GitHub. Thanks for watching.